Hi, y'all. It's Bridget Cutshaw with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Geeta Sidhu-Robb. Hopefully, I said her name right. She is an entrepreneur and a coach. She's based in London, and I'm so glad that we connected. We have more in common than I realized. We were conversing before I started recording. Can you say hi, Geeta?
Hi, thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. A lot has happened the last 4 or 5 years. I think because of COVID, and some days I don't even know what day it is. I'm just being could be me getting older, but I really love talking to women like you, especially in Europe, because you have a different perspective. The first thing that popped into my mind is what prompted you to go into coaching? Because my understanding you were an attorney at one point, correct?
Yeah, no, we're in England. We don't really, coaching is a very new concept. Like in the US, people will laugh at this, but I've been getting coached by people from the US since 2010. Getting coached by people in the UK has been like a 2, 3 year thing. It's very, very new for us.
Okay.
And so I was running a health and wellness business. My first child was very sick. So I was working from home because I had to. Then I had two more kids and I ended up as a single parent. So I've been a single parent since my 20s, like my entire adult life. And I had to work from home because every time I left home, he would end up sick. It was just a nightmare. And because I'd worked on his health, I knew health and wellness and I set up this business. And so there I am working with all these. We had a huge health business. We had a lot of impact. It was a fantastic success. But what happened during the process is we were the only game in town that did home delivery of food. This is 2007. We were the first company to introduce juice fast. We were the first to introduce IV drips, all these things. And we had all these amazing women coming through. A lot of them were very, very famous. So my clients were Gwyneth Paltrow, Stella McCartney, Simon Cowell, two of the Spice Girls. I mean, like you name it, they were people coming in. And women would come in and go, so I just need to lose weight and then I can do. And I'm sitting there going, babe, really no. You are so skinny that if we had to cut you to lose more weight, we'd have to cut off your hair and maybe your nails. Like this is impossible. And they'd be like, no, 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 no. If I do, and I'm like, no, that's stupid. Don't do that. Do this. And they'd be like, huh. And then they'd go in, they'd come back and they go, can you do that again? I'm like, which? They're like, the part where you call me stupid for wanting to lose weight. I was like, sure. And, I was so poor and I was setting up this business and I was like, how much was the single thing in my brain? You know what it's like with small kids. So every time somebody came and they were like, we'll pay more. I was like, how much? And then I kept doing that. It turned out that was coaching.
Okay.
Like who knew? And I did not understand that there were polite coaches and that coaches that let you, feel your way to the answer. I'm like, I wasn't that kind of coach. I was like, no, that must be therapy. If you're here, we're talking about if you're stupid.
Yes, exactly.
So I love it. I love my job. It was so much fun. But what happened was women were getting these insane results. So women were coming in that were, again, as I said, some of the most famous women in the world, part of the royal family. But you also had women coming in that were turning over businesses at like 15 million was their revenue, I think you call it in America.
Correct.
And then we would work together and I'd be like, no, 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 no. Be stronger, be more confident, be more powerful, dream bigger, have more. And this poor woman was like, oh my God. And then in 7.5 years, they were at 52 million,
Oh, wow.
right? So that happened again and again and again. Like there are 19 women that chair NASDAQ companies, and I've coached a few of those. There are 20 to 30 women globally that have listed companies on the stock exchange. I've coached a few of those. There are just these like Fortune 500. There's usually 5 or 6 or 8 of them that are my clients. So that's how coaching happened. It was by accident, and I've kind of never stopped, and I love it so much.
Well, obviously you're adding value, you're helping everybody, and you realized, right, you realize that you can help people. And as women, we want to help other people, but you're doing it in Gita's way, which I think that I agree with that. It's you have to be yourself to help other people, and you're not rude, you're just being honest, right?
No, I'm never rude,
Right.
but I think that when you become very wealthy or very powerful or you're very driven, it's really hard sometimes to hear
Uh,
because you're kind of like this. And you kind of need to really be very blunt in order for people to hear you. So I've worked with, around 21,000 women in the last 17 years.
wow.
the one thing I've some men as well. The one thing that I've learned is when people are sick or people feel unhealthy or they feel unfulfilled, you need to get very, very drilled down to the absolute core problem to help them to move forward. And so I just got very good at going, no, 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 this is stupid. Let's fix this, and then we'll fix the next thing. You know, like when you're exhausted, you're running around with too many children, you cannot function until you look after yourself. And so I teach them to start at the starting place, if that makes sense.
I totally agree with you on that, because we try to just do too many things at the same time, and
Yeah.
you got to find the root cause of something. And being a woman, it's just in our nature, like I mentioned earlier, we want to help and take care of other people, but we don't take care of ourselves. And I'm guilty, and I think I don't know why it's ingrained in us,
Well, you
but
see, I'm not, because that's how I grew up too. We're brought
oh,
up like this, right?
right,
Society would fall apart if they didn't tell women as they were growing up, it's your job to look after everyone else, because who would do this as an
yes,
unpaid, unappreciated job? But I did it so when I started being a single parent, I was like, I'm doing it all. I haven't got any money to pay anyone. I'm doing it all. So I was looking after the kids. I was cooking, poor things, cleaning, even more poor things, and then going to work and then making the money and then picking them up and dropping them off and everything and everything. And then I ended up literally in a hospital in an emergency with a drip in my arm.
oh wow,
And I was like, this is stupid. This literally, I have to go to school, pick up in 2 hours, and there's no one to do it if I don't do it. And if I died, my ex or my mother was going to have the kids. And so we were screwed both ways. So I was like, okay, so we're going to get better and stay better and then go from there. And so then I have learned, I focus on my health as my mental and physical health every single day as a starting point.
I totally agree with that. And I've had health issues too, and I'm sure it's a combination of everything. Mine was environmental, is that the right word, environmental? But it's stuff that was beyond my control. But there's some things you can control, and that is what you need to, I think, focus on, things that you
Yeah.
can control, right? The best way.
Entirely. But I mean, if you start with the emotional approach of I matter, I'm worthy, for whatever reason, I honestly only did it because of my kids. I don't know if I would have thought I was valuable or worthwhile just on my own. I maybe would not have got there so fast, but I was the only breadwinner. So who else was going to do it? So I had to think I was valuable very fast.
You were definitely, it motivated you, and having kids definitely is going to motivate you to make the right choices for
Yeah.
them and you. And
But
it's
really with them, you start with them.
yeah, you start with them. The same with me. When I had the health issues, I focused on how am I going to be here for them? I did this. How can I make this happen? And you still need support system. You find a way to get a support system. But I like you took your journey and you're helping other women, because we are all dealing with something. And that's really what I started this podcast, is about resilience. We're all dealing with something. I don't think we're born with it. I think we get knocked down and learn how to, I mean, like, and how to get up, how to overcome it. I should say overcome. You don't always overcome challenges, but you have to push the rock forward, whatever is in front of you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in a way it is overcoming, because there isn't a baby. If you put a baby girl and a baby boy next to each other, the baby girl doesn't roll out of her way to go to the boy, let me look after you. She doesn't. She has to be taught that.
Yes.
And so, and if she isn't learning it at home, she's learning it outside of the home. And it's a format. You have to then decide to accept or refuse that format. And for me, I came out of a sick child, a terrible marriage, all this stuff, and I ended up with 3 small kids and me having to look after and do all of those things. And that's like, okay, who do I have to be
Right.
the person? And you know,
Right.
we get brought up a lot with let's be resilient, which is fine, but they're like, you're going to bounce back. I'm like, I am not a trampoline. Screw the
Right.
bouncing business. I don't want to bounce anywhere. I want to win. I want to succeed. I want to be the most powerful version of me, and I want to be rich as hell. And those are not what people traditionally think women should think or should say. And I was like, nah, what have you done for me lately? I'm sticking with my ideas.
I like that we need more examples of women like you to be more examples for the younger girls. That's how I see it. I think you mentioned earlier in the conversation about girls who came to you, women, excuse me, who want to lose weight, but why? You know what I'm saying? It's just what is expected of women. And the culture that you live in can be a little different than mine in the US. And it was, I grew up in the, God, 70s and 80s and 90s. So a little different back then. And I think
So women didn't have to be thin, or they did?
they were thin, but they had to be compliant. So
Yes. Well, they still have to be compliant.
correct. And I kind of stood out like my mom a little bit. I didn't like give the middle finger, but I always stood up. That's my I shouldn't say I'm stubborn, but the tenacious, you have to be that way. You stand up for yourself, but I would do it in a nice way. And I was told I wouldn't be successful because I was a woman, right? And that just gave me more motivation to succeed. That's kind of, I didn't take it negatively. I'm like, all right, I'll show you. But that's, again, I was very grateful to have a strong mother and a mother-in-law who were good female role models for me. And that's what we need. We don't want to, whatever, if you want to look a certain way, whatever, that's how I see it. But at the same time, I think your value is doesn't depend on your looks. That's kind of what I'm kind of implying here. And that's kind of how it was back in the 70s and 80s, how you looked. And my mom and my mother-in-law, they both got married around 1960. Can you imagine what it was like to be a woman back then? And my mother is from France, so she married an American soldier. So she came back. That's how she came to the United States. And she had to deal with stuff just because she was different.
Yeah.
That's right. It's just no matter what I'm saying, every culture you go to, you just don't know. I've never been to London, but I've been to Europe several times. But I like what you're doing, and I love the aspect of Zoom. By the way, you and I can connect and talk. It's what is I guess the main takeaway that you have learned for yourself working with all these other women? You said about 21. Is there one or two main takeaways you've learned?
There's a couple. One is that it doesn't matter how famous or successful a woman is, she still has quite low self-esteem, because she still doesn't feel completely safe who she is.
Ah, okay.
And the other one would be that I always think my job is to show up as the best version of me all the time. So the most powerful version of me, the most driven, the most focused, and that nothing else, and nobody, that's kind of my starting point. But then the third version is nobody else's opinion of me is relevant. It's only my opinion of me that matters.
That's true. We get a lot of feedback now, especially with social media, that you're not accepting sometimes. And I'm so grateful I didn't have that growing up, because I see, or I not see, I understand a lot of younger people are affected by it. Their mental.
A lot. Yeah. Like, I mean, I spend a lot of time on camera, and I make sure I never watch anything. I'm like, it is what it is, and we're done. We're not like, I will never go back and watch things. I mean, you do it to learn, but other than that, I'm like, oh, heck, no, I don't want to know. And no, I mean, like, I feel like, don't you find that when you listen to yourself, you think I sound weird and I look weird, and why do I do that with I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not. Whereas the younger generation, everything has to be perfect. So they are like, I need to lift this and put this. I'm like, nope, we are where we are.
Correct. It is what it is. And I shouldn't say it. I think it's because of it's a generational thing and the culture thing, probably. And I think women who are more powerful, they probably are more stressed than regular people realize, correct? Who
All
are,
the time.
yeah,
All
they're
the time.
definitely under a lot of stress. And that's why I was never interested in being famous. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I just knew the stress would not be good for me. So
I agree, but I think that you can be powerful without being famous.
correct. I want to be powerful, but I don't want to be on the newspaper headlines all the time, because that I would not like that. Even my background has been is in publishing and communications, but I've always in the background. That's kind of how I felt more can be myself. And I'm still careful of what I say, Geeta, when I'm talking to people. Just I joke that it's the grammar Nazi in me. My kids call me the grammar Nazi because I was really careful about what you say, because that's the generation I grew up in.
Yeah, because you had to speak properly. Like we have that as well. Like British schools are kind of famous for that.
Yes, and it could be my mother telling me certain things. She taught me English, by the way, so I said things backwards because the French and English in America, their adjectives and nouns are differently. I just think I laugh about it now because I didn't take it personally, really. You just got to have to me, a sense of humor is important, I think.
Yes.
It's not, life isn't perfect. That's what held me back sometimes. I tried to be perfect all the time.
I mean, I think that's how we're brought up. I think that we're brought up where, trying to be perfect is how to be pleasing.
Yes.
To be pleasing.
Yes.
And so it's a really hard road to give up. And I kind of and I've almost fully done it, but I never think about being pleasing.
Right.
And it is something that when you're younger, especially very intelligent women, get attacked a lot when they're younger. So when I'm coaching women, you can always tell because when they're intelligent, when they were younger, they got attacked for that. They were like, oh, you're just too much. Like you just speak too much. You talk too much. Do you have to be this much? I remember somebody once saying to me, you don't have to be intelligent all the time. I was like, huh. So you like switch it off somewhere?
How do you switch it off? Right.
How the heck does that work? I mean, I did not, so that was confusing. So I was like, yeah, we're not doing that. And then you learn to be a different version. If you're not going to be the version of you were taught, what do you replace it with?
Right. That's when acting comes in handy, right? I mean, I was not an actress. I'm terrible at acting, but I did learn. I just felt bad about certain aspects of my life. And I had to do with being probably bullied, right?
Yeah.
It's because I had a French mother who was also half Vietnamese. So it was just like I was different, then I embraced it. I learned to embrace it and hang around people that were okay with it. And
Yeah.
I think it's okay to be, I always talk about be yourself. That's I mean that can be taken too far, as you know. Can be taken.
No, I don't think so. I think that's not.
So?
Well, no, because I think if when we're saying to somebody, be yourself, what we're saying is still be decent and kind and human.
Yes.
Right? And those are general population kind of requirements. So let's not be stupid about it and go, well, I want to wander around and kind of pull off my clothes in the middle of the
Right.
street.
No, don't do that. Right.
No, not unless you're married to a rapper and you have no brains. That's obviously an entirely different place to be. But I don't think we need to modify these things. There are acceptable forms of behavior which we understand are there. And therefore, let's be reasonable about it.
Yes, you need to be reasonable and I think open to different perspectives that will help anybody. I think we kind of get caught in a bubble. Is that the word? I think some people talk about that, tribes and things like that. I like being around diverse people. I think it's because my upbringing, I was like, okay, I'm going to embrace having a French mom who can't speak good English, but it was fine. And I turned out just fine. My family turned.
Obviously you did.
Right. It's again, I joke about me being stubborn, but that I like to throw in humor. That's just how I've dealt with things for some reason. I probably got it from, I have an older brother. So he's like my protector. So I appreciate having family. And that's another thing. If you can have family, that is really helpful.
I think a sense of humor is really the most valuable. There's a few things, character traits I think are valuable. One is to have a sense of humor and not take yourself too seriously.
Correct.
And it's so interesting. The truly famous people are actually very good about this. It's always the ones that wannabes that are the worst,
Right.
because they want to be more famous. So they behave very badly. But also there's the concept that you want to retain this sense of humor. You want to have a strong sense of self. You want to be able to say no to the things you don't want. And then you can say yes to the things you do want. But
Correct.
without being able to say no, like no woman, that book that wrote Say Yes for a Year. I'm like, I bet you that book was written by a man. A woman never needs to write a stupid book like that because she's studying how to say no, because she wants to say no, but she doesn't know how to, or she's afraid to, or her life is not set up where anyone's even listening. So those are the things that really matter. So I found that for me, I had to remake a version of myself that I was comfortable with, and I came from there.
That's good that you have to change, and change is normal in life. Correct.
Pivoting is vital.
Yes, it's very important. You can't just be stuck on the same path because you're not going to get better at what you're trying to improve on. And hopefully I said that correctly. I'm not a coach like you, but
I think you'll do. You're very eloquent, so it's not really at all relevant.
Thank you. I think that's why people have trusted me, because I listen. I've learned to listen and to not blah, just throw my opinion out there, because you're there to help them. And sometimes people just want some quiet space to share things. And I've had that a lot, which sometimes I say, no, I don't want to know, because of how the depth of that angst that they're dealing with.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to be careful to have too much of that in me. And I think that's why I've noticed a lot of people, younger people, are getting into the psychology field. I wonder, maybe that's in America.
I think it's probably a form of control. You think, if I understand why, then it's better, right?
Yeah.
And actually, I always think that it's really important to understand that you cannot control anyone outside of you. That you can only control what's happening inside of you, and that's the only thing that's relevant. Everything else is not relevant.
Correct. It is, again, it's shocking to all these kids who have degrees in psychology and they're interested in it for some reason. I never really talked about it, but most of my friends that I went to high school with, if they went to college, we all got business degrees, because that's what you did in the 80s.
Or law.
Right. You go a legal aspect, or you go to the business. And I went the business aspect. I was very good at math, and I was told, you got to go get a degree in finance. And I was very rebellious. I said no. And because I like to write. And I think that's kind of why I weaved it in through marketing, because marketing, you get to write a lot. So I think that I found a way to make it happen. And again, I think life, you just got to look back and reflect on it. How even though some things were bad, I think some of it was kind of funny. Like I mentioned, I just like to laugh at things that happen in life.
And I think also you kind of look back and you suddenly find that all those things happened for a reason, and you just don't know what they are. And then you end up in a place and you're like, oh, that's why I picked up those seemingly useless skills. Got it. I'm now here and I can use it, right?
Correct. And that's why I think my love for writing, I was something that started as a child. And back then, I was told it was stupid to do that. I was told and like, so back in my mind, okay, you're stupid. That's what I would think. But that was our culture.
Yeah.
The 70s and 80s. But I think now, gosh, I'm not going to go down this path of tech, but I'm not stressed about it. I'm sure you've heard about the tech aspect of AI and the writing.
Oh, we use it all the time.
Yeah, I think it helps summarize stuff so much faster.
Yeah, it's like having a dishwasher. It's like, why would you use it? It's there.
I love that. It's the analogy, comparing it to being a dishwasher. I don't see it as replacing thinking. I think
because you can always tell AI different to speech, but it can help you kind of just as a launch pad. It's a fantastic thing.
I think it's really helpful. To me, it makes things easier when you're going through. I get a lot of things coming through, and I want it to be summary, like this podcast. I'm going to get the transcript, and help me get the summary, because if I have someone helping me, or even me doing it myself, they still have to go through and look at everything to make sure we're getting the points. But I still check everything. I mean, I don't just randomly throw it out there, but I should say random. But it's just so exciting. I love your personality. I love your sarcasm. I think that's probably why. Oh yeah, I'm connecting with you, because you get it. You've been through it. You've been through changes, and you pivoted where it's necessary. and you've helped so many women. And I think women are going to learn more from listening to a woman like you. I think that's
That's very kind of you. I still learn every day,
oh yeah.
all the time. So I think we're all just learning. That's
Oh, especially as we get, I call it golder. My next chapter, you still learn. You can't stay the same because you're not going to have a different life, I think, if you stay the same.
completely.
It's
It's
important.
really kind of you to have me on, though. Thank you.
Oh, I love this. So, where can people learn more about you, Geeta?
Any social media. If you just, my name's Geeta Sidhu-Robb. So as long as you check the spelling once, because it's a weird enough name, please join me. Social media, either Instagram, TikTok, or LinkedIn. I always read the DMs and I reply to the ones that are, not weird and
Yeah.
strange. So that's fantastic. Yes, please.
So, those that are listening, I'll include the spelling of her name and the links to her Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And I think this is so very helpful. And I love how you took your legal background and you're taking it to help women with their changes in life because it's normal, but we need to keep moving forward, right?
Exactly. No, it's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody.